everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers Podcast. I am Jody Grunwald. This week, my guest is Heather Mistretta. Heather has more than 30 years of professional writing and editing experience, as well as extensive experience in all aspects of communications. That includes website content creation, planning, media relations, video scripting, white papers, marketing, and nonprofit development and leadership. In 2013, she co-founded a not-for-profit called Women and Girls Education, WAGE International, of which she is president. She is also the founder of the former Expanded Horizons Tutoring, where the inception of her writing business pressing releases first began when parents of tutees asked her about writing services for themselves after seeing such improvement in their children's writing. But perhaps her story is best told through her blogging. Within her blogs, she has woven in her philosophies, motivations, passions, and what drives her to write. She enjoys sharing other people's stories and making a difference through the work of her not-for-profit. Towards the end of the episode, Heather shares a very personal story. Listen in to hear more about her determination and resiliency. Please subscribe to the Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel. Stream this podcast on all streaming sites. Reviews and shares are always welcomed and help us to be heard. Like us on Facebook and Instagram by going to Today is the Day, Live It. To learn more about Today is the Day consulting and coaching services and the new Today is the Day Changemakers Connective, go to todayisthedayliveit.com. Sign up for our mailing list to be notified when new events and networking opportunities become available. Also, I am the CEO and co-founder of the Zach G. Applaudor Kids Foundation. To learn more about how the organization is connecting children with a financial need to an ongoing creative outlet, go to applaudourkids.org. The views expressed by all Today's the Day Changemakers podcast guests are their own. Their appearance on the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast does not imply any endorsement of them or any entity that they represent. Have a great week, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I am Jody Grunwald, and as I say every week, I get to interview the incredible humans who are just making a difference in their corner of the world and beyond. And today I have Heather Mistretta with me. Hi, Heather.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you, and I'm so excited to be able to share your story here today. So thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. And you're welcome. I'm going to read and then we're going to chat. Sound good?
Sounds good.
So Heather has more than 30 years of professional writing and editing experience, as well as extensive experience in all aspects of communication, including website content creation, planning, media relations, video scripting, white papers, marketing, and nonprofit development and leadership. She is also the proud single mother of a 22-year-old son, Aiden, who recently graduated summa cum laude from TCNJ with a degree in psychology, double minors in Spanish and criminology. Oh my goodness, he's busy, huh, Heather?
Yes, indeed.
It sounds so wonderful. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Very proud. Within her 30 years as a professional writer, she has launched a newsletter, managed a team of journalists, written for the Worldwide News Service, where she also helped to create the electricity reporting desk. That was at Reuters?
Yes, that was in the city. I worked for Reuters.
That's awesome. Acted as an editor for an alumni magazine where she spearheaded the first women's forum and regularly wrote press releases, and co-founded a not-for-profit in 2013 called Women's and Girls Education, WAGE International, of which she is president. She is also the founder of the former Expanded Horizons Tutoring, where the inception of her writing business, pressing releases, first began when parents of tutees asked her about writing services for themselves after seeing such improvement in their children's writing, and she continues to tutor today. Concurrently, and there's more, she has volunteered for social services, tutored math and English to junior high school students in Washington, D.C., and taught English as a second language to a Taiwanese minister, which I will ask you some questions about. That sounds very interesting. But perhaps her story is best told through her blogging. Within her blogs, she has woven in her philosophies, motivations, passions, and what drives her to write. I love your bio, by the way. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now we know why you are a wordsmith, because it's, you know, right there, it's right there in the bio, the way you wrote that. And you took us on a journey. And I think that's what's so beautiful about bios. And I always ask this question: how did it feel to hear it back?
As I've told you before, I love telling other people's stories. Telling my own isn't so palatable for me. So it was okay. I enjoyed hearing it, hearing my own words back, realizing that I have in fact accomplished some things. So I appreciate this very much.
Absolutely. And that's, I'm glad you brought that up. So thank you for that. It doesn't always come naturally for us to talk about ourselves. Like we were saying before too, generationally, a lot of times we're taught, don't be boastful, don't be conceited, don't come off to say that you're accomplished anything because people won't like you.
Mm-hmm.
And yet what I've learned is that we are inspired by those stories that we hear. Like I know for myself when I listen to other people and maybe you as well. So if we don't share, and we have, like you said, I have over 30 years of experience too. You have 30 years if we don't share from experience, how do we inspire the next generation? So it's getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. So any thoughts around that though? Like thinking as you were preparing for this podcast, I know it was kind of outside of that comfort zone. What do you think came up for you during that?
Yeah, as I said, I feel public speaking is certainly not a talent of mine. There's a reason why I became a print journalist, so that I didn't have to be a broadcaster and be in front of a camera. Much rather be behind the scenes. So, but I did, in preparation for this, I tried not to prepare too much, and hoping that would lead to a successful interview.
Yeah, absolutely. And it will, and it already is. So Heather, thank you for doing that and coming out of your comfort zone. And that's one of the things that I am trying to also teach the listeners about, that it's very important to share your vulnerability in order to make better connections. So we appreciate that. So let's talk about you and where you grew up. So where were you born and raised?
Okay, I was born and raised. Well, I was born in Englewood, New Jersey, raised mostly in Monmouth County, in a small town called Lincroft, New Jersey. One of those one traffic light towns. Worked at the local Acme. It's not a very colorful life, but it was a nice, peaceful town to live in, definitely.
Yes, I have friends that live there. It's a beautiful town, and I know the Acme that you're talking about. So that's
okay.
So when you were a child, were you more on the shyer side or more outgoing?
I was definitely very shy as a child. I had friends. I had quite a few friends, but yes, for the most part, I was shy. Had a hard time opening up to people. And I was raised to be someone who was a people pleaser. And to this day, I'm still kind of the same way. I've learned to kind of mature, of course, and get away from that. But, that's part of who I am, and that's okay.
Absolutely. We have to meet ourselves where we are. You know what I mean? And that is so, if we find places where we want to improve, great. If we love who we are in that moment and in that space, well, why not just embrace that, right? We have to, like, I've given up being a morning person. Like I've always put myself down because I am not a morning person. And so, and yet people are like, oh, if you're a leader, you have to be a morning person, but I'm not. So does that make me not able to ever be a leader? No, it's just yeah. And so that's why if you got to meet yourself where you are, that's what's most important.
I agree.
So going through life, you're on the shyer side. Did you always know you wanted to be a writer and be behind the scenes, or was that something that evolved?
I guess it would be yes to both of those questions. Even as a little girl, I loved to write. I would write little stories on pieces of paper, staple it together with a crayon, and write stories. I mean, my mom and dad probably have, tons of those memories. But as every child does as they grow up, you start questioning that. You think, one day I wanted to be a vet, another day I wanted to be a teacher. That natural evolution, I think, I always kind of envy those people who knew exactly what their path was and what they wanted to do. And there was no way they were going to veer away from that. But so yes, to answer your question, I guess in a long way, yes, I think I always knew I wanted to be a writer. I also remember watching, as a teenager, I remember watching 60 Minutes. And there was a segment about the abuse of cattle and, just the wrongdoings that were going on. And how, 60 Minutes has always been, obviously a forerunner in journalism. And I thought, wow, I want to do that. I want to tell people stories. I want to try to help people through my writing. So that's when I decided to go for a journalism degree at American.
So you knew that even though you might not want to be in front, your voice could be so important by what you would share in words on paper.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. But it's funny, when I tried to figure out my career in college, I also toyed with the idea of physical therapy, because I kind of, I have a love of writing, but I also have a love of medicine. So I went the writing route. Maybe it wasn't the most strongest economical choice, but it's okay. No regret.
It is, right? You go where your heart is, and I know it's. I know you look at the different salaries, and you're like, but the fulfillment is different, and that's the important part. Looking
Right.
back and knowing you did what you loved there's something so special about that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So your passion for writing started at what age do you think?
I was little. I was a little girl. Like 7. About 7.
I love that you said that you wrote in crayon on paper and stapled it. That must be an interesting memory for you, right? What were you writing about? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't know. Probably something to do with dogs. And something, because my dog was my life when I was little. I love animals I still to this day, but I don't recall the stories I used to write. I hope I've improved since then, but
no more crayons. I can guarantee you're not.
I haven't written
crayons.
A story with the crayons since then. No, maybe I should.
Yeah, it might be time. There's creativity in that for sure, without a doubt. So let's talk about your first job. So where did you land when you got out of school?
Okay, it was 1991. The economy was horrible, and I thought I had a job down in DC. It was supposed to be a continuation of my internship that I had at a publishing company. But it turned out they didn't have enough money to pay me, so I had to move back to Jersey. And but I wound up landing a job in Red Bank. I started 3 weeks after I graduated for a small publishing company, writing about, of all things, natural gas. Naturally, I did not learn that in college.
No.
Anything about natural gas. So it was a sharp learning curve, but wound up being a great learning experience. And that's what led to my job at Reuters, because someone at Reuters, I guess, recognized me and they wanted me to join their team. And that's how that all happened.
And you see, that's the miracle of connection, right? They see something, they read something, you talk to someone, you meet someone, you hand them a business card. You think that so many times doesn't lead to things. It just takes that one connection. So what did you do there? How long did you stay there?
At my first job or at Reuters?
Reuters, sorry.
Yeah, Reuters, I was only there for, let's see, it was from 96 to 2000, about 4 years. It was up until about 2 weeks before my son was born. It was after, my gynecologist implored me to come home and stop, because I had been taking the ferry across. And he said, Heather, your baby might be born in New York, New Jersey, or somewhere in between. Do you really want that to happen? And then being the shy person, I thought, oh my gosh, no, I didn't want that
Yeah.
to happen. So I
Do
said,
you want the captain? Do you want the captain to be the doctor who delivers the that's
right.
great.
Never be able to take the ferry again.
That's awesome. It's
Thankfully,
a
it
great
didn't
thing.
happen. He was, healthy birth in New Jersey.
That's good.
So
That's
yeah,
all
so I
good.
was at Reuters for 4 years. Had a wonderful time, learned a lot. Went through a very changing time in an energy industry. The energy industry pretty much imploded. So it was an exciting time to be reporting about it. Had a great boss, Norwegian man, still to this day is my favorite boss. So yeah, it was a great experience.
You were writing way different about what you were originally like, animals to energy. That's
Yeah, I was talking to, traders on the floor, NYMEX floor. So it was exciting. It was fun for a 20-something-year-old doing that, talking to all these oil traders, which was a very male-dominated field and still is, but it has changed a lot since the 90s.
What challenges did you face? Like you said, it was a male dominated. So how did you get over that? What did you do to keep yourself feeling like confident enough to do these interviews and write the work that you needed to write?
I guess simply put, I just did a good job. I did my job well. Told the story, told it well. Wound up getting a few what they called back then scoops. I don't know if they still call it that, but then those scoops could be shared with my sources, and that just made me even more of a credible journalist to them and source. So yeah, I didn't really experience any of that, machismo, or whatever you want to call it, with these traders. Like I said, they saw that I was doing a good job, and that was enough for them.
So what does being part of this industry do for you?
Being part of the journalism industry?
Journalism and writing, and what does that do for you as a person?
What does it do for me? As I said, I enjoyed telling people stories, so it enables me to have that platform to do so. Back when I was idealistic 20-year-old and thinking about what I wanted to do, I always said I wanted to be able to have the privilege of making enough money so that I could help other people in a really transformative way. And that, I haven't quite gotten to that pinnacle yet, I say. But yeah, it enables me to do that in a really, I guess I say, an unstructured way, in a good way. Yeah, and it gives me that opportunity to showcase people who are doing some amazing things. And no matter what sector they're in, whether they're in the energy sector or whether they're in nonprofit sector or anywhere in between. Yeah, I consider it an honor to be able to do that.
So tell us what you're doing now.
Okay, I'm basically on my own now, doing my own business. I've been building my client base and then building the business I do for my clients also. I'm a contractor for a corporation right now, part-time, which is kind of acting as the anchor in terms of my income. And I'm having fun. I'm enjoying the freedom. I got a taste of that freedom I was working full-time up until January, and had been working from home for 2 years. And I kind of liked it. I enjoyed that freedom of being able to work on my own hours and go outside if I wanted to. So that's what I'm doing. I'm expanding my writing business, and I'm loving it. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So I want to talk about some things that I know are very important to you. And one of them is WAGE and Women and Girls Education International. And I was blessed to speak at one of your events just recently, and I'm grateful to you for that. That was so beautiful.
Did a wonderful job.
Thank you. But I want people to understand what WAGE is all about, why you started it, and how it got started. You're co-founder, right?
Yes.
So can you share with us like the beginning and the work that you did?
Sure. It all started back in 2013. A friend of mine at Monmouth University, where I had been working, Reuter, had the idea. She had the initial idea of starting this organization following an atrocity in India. And it wasn't the first, it wasn't the last, but basically 2 women were burned to death because of adultery that their husbands committed. So unfortunately, this does happen even to this day. And she, as someone who grew up in Kolkata, India, she definitely felt a strong, obviously, obligation to do something. So we got our heads together, she and I and a few other friends, in the cafeteria of the university. And we came up with this idea that we would have an organization whose mission was that we believed education was the means to prevent violence and abuse against women and girls. So we're still very much a grassroots organization, which is fine. That's always been our intention. But basically we do this through mentoring. We have a mentoring program in Asbury Park that we've been doing. We'll continue again this summer, starting next month. And this year we're doing it to younger girls and boys, 5th and 6th graders. But in the past, we've always taught middle schoolers. And we teach them all about like civil rights leaders. And we try to make it kind of connect to an art project, to a poetry project. And then, especially in the last few years, of course, we like to have open time for conversation because I think these kids need it so much. And when I say education, I mean, not necessarily we're teaching them reading and writing, but education that will inspire them to do better for others and themselves, that bolsters self-esteem, that empowers them to help themselves and help others so that maybe they're not put into a situation where they might be abused or a situation where they could be the aggressor. So, so mentoring is the core of what we do, but we also have learning sessions. We partner with like-minded organizations. We do fundraising, as you know, that wound up being a very successful fundraiser in May. And we're constantly learning and growing and, bringing on new team members who are helping us do that. So we're grateful.
So I just want to go back to something you said in the very, very beginning. So you had said that this all started because 2 women were burned after their husbands committed adultery.
Mm-hmm.
So they got burned because their husbands committed adultery?
Mm-hmm. That's okay. The culture. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to clarify and make sure that I heard that.
Yeah,
correct.
I know. It's bizarre. It's horrific. But they see the women don't have any rights. And someone has to be punished. So naturally it would be the woman.
Got it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't really have it, but it's awful.
No, there's no way you can get your head around that. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. And it's so good that you're educating kids right here about, abuse. I've done a podcast about domestic violence. I think, like you said, whether you're the victim or the survivor, really, or the aggressor, it's important for both to be aware of anger management or codependency, whichever side you're sitting on. And I think it's wonderful that you're doing that, and you're doing it. You said in Asbury. Is your plans to stay within the Monmouth County area?
No, we'd like to replicate the program elsewhere. We're actually working on doing a remote mentoring program in Kolkata at an orphanage there called the Rainbow Program. We're going to start that up later this month. So hope all goes well. It will be difficult because these kids face a lot of challenges, come from all walks of life there. So we're hoping we can help a little bit. And then I'm hoping to also do a similar program in Uganda with the woman I introduced you to, Tina. She has a cosmetology training program there. We're hoping that maybe we can mentor those young women who are going through the training, because I'm sure they're facing struggles and challenges that seem insurmountable sometimes. So we're hoping to be a good mentor to them as well.
You're talking about culture change. You're talking, by it's really culture change, because you're going to educate these people, and now they have to convince the rest of those within it, whether it's a village or a town or a city, that this is the right way, or the way, peaceful negotiation, or just having peace within your world is so important. And it's a hard culture change for certain organizations. And Tina or individuals, Tina will be on the podcast as well too. So I'm excited. Thank you so much for that introduction.
PAM 10 is a leader in IT enterprise solutions and staffing. They are driven to transform their clients' business performances. They do this every day by providing their clients with the best services and products like BizLego, an online community platform, and Colear, a unique learning management system. They also transform the lives of women and children through their associated nonprofits, SheTech, which supports women in and joining the technology field, and Softkin, support organization for kids in need. PAM 10, technology for social good. Go to pam10.com for more information.
So, in starting this organization and the programming that you're doing, how do you find the children to be part of it? Here in New Jersey?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how we found Asbury Park. I think through our connections with Reuter and others at Monmouth University, we were able to start a mentoring program. And then the curriculum director, Janice, was someone I had worked with prior at Kean University. And I've continued that communication with her. So, the kids there's an inordinate need there, as I'm sure many people listening know that. So, our focus has been Asbury Park, but that's because of that. The need is there. So there's really no need to go anywhere else at this time. So they usually have summer mentoring programs, and we are just part of that whole lineup. So we're grateful to be part of it. Like I said, we teach them. A couple of years ago, I decided that I didn't want to just teach them. I shouldn't say just, but about Martin Luther King Jr. or Gandhi, or all these wonderful civil rights heroes, Mandela. I wanted them to be able to learn something new, because possibly they have already learned about these people, and I didn't want them to just tune out because of that. We're talking about, they were 13, 14-year-olds. They tune out no matter what. So, it's a challenge to keep them engaged. So I came up with the idea of featuring local heroes as well, so that maybe something within those heroes would resonate with their own stories. So I found people who were born in Asbury Park, people who, were musicians, some people who are Haitian, because there's a big Haitian population in Asbury Park. And that seemed to resonate pretty well with them. They actually, did sit up and pay attention. I remember I did a lesson last summer on Cesar Chavez. And this one Hispanic boy just continually had to correct me on my pronunciation because I
love it.
I thought it was great. I just kept on mispronouncing, which I don't know why I did, but I did. And he, he was proud. That was someone he was proud of, and he wanted his name pronounced correctly. So, it's a challenge, like I said, to keep them engaged. But even if we can reach one kid, it's worth the effort.
Without a doubt. And you know what? You weren't doing it on purpose, but the important point in there is that he was paying attention.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So the correction was actually a gift, because it meant he was listening.
Yes.
So how do people find Wage?
How do they find Wage? Well, we have a website, Wage International. It's wage, WAGEINTL.org. You can find all the information there, including contact information. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. So you can find out a lot about us there. We're always looking for volunteers, mentors, to help out. New voices, new ears are always good.
Yeah, the nonprofit world, we need all the help we can get, every single one.
Exactly.
And I was lucky, like I said, to attend one of your fundraiser events and speak at the event. And I hope people will take a look, a listen, follow, like, share. You just never know who says, this is something I'm really passionate about and I want to get involved in. That's the way we figure out where we are meant to be, is by sharing things, and it doesn't cost us anything to share them.
Right. So. It's like, you've emphasized so much that it's all about that conversation. The conversations we have lead to things directly or indirectly. So those conversations need to continue.
Absolutely. Another thing that you're very passionate about is blogging. So tell us about your blogging and where can people find your blogs?
Okay. I have a website also for my writing, pressingreleases.com. And my blogs are front and center on the website. That's where I'm able to express myself freely and not following any parameters, no journalistic standards. I can break rules all I want. And it allows me to kind of share my own story, either directly or indirectly. And then also offer some hints, writing hints. And I enjoy it. I find it cathartic to blog. So I'll continue.
And I love pressing releases. I think I loved that when I saw that was your website, and also I believe it's also on Instagram. It's pressing releases as well, right?
Yeah, it's funny. That's how my company started, Pressing Releases. However, recently I'm kind of wondering if it reflects well enough what I do, because it connotes that I'm mainly a PR person, but I'm clearly not. I'm more of a storyteller. So that's kind of I'm kind of mulling that over. Possibly changing that, but I'll keep you posted.
Yes, keep me posted. And believe me, I understand completely, because today is the day, it's used all over the place, and you're always wondering, is it a fit? Branding yourself and the work you do is so hard, because you try, especially now, the amount of characters people are willing to pay attention to is very, very limited. The attention span is very limited.
Oh yeah, first 7 seconds is all you have, really.
Yeah. So try to get out if you're like us, right, that wear many hats and do many things, you could have one thing a second. You could be doing 7 things. You need it, you only have 1 second per thing that you do. If it's only 7 seconds.
Right.
So that's a problem. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is this volunteering and tutoring, and then tutoring a Taiwanese minister.
Oh yeah, that was fun. That was many years ago. That was before Aiden was little. Aiden was a baby at that point. And I went through a training program with Literacy Volunteers of America. And so I became a certified ESL tutor, which was an extra training addendum. And my first person I tutored was this man named Paul Tsai, TSAI, and he was a Taiwanese minister, one of the kindest people I've ever known. And he and his wife were here. They years ago went back to Taiwan because culturally they couldn't fit in New Jersey. So they went back. Unfortunately, I lost connection with him. But yeah, he wanted to learn how to read and write English better, because he wanted to be able to communicate with his parishioners better and other people. A lovely man. It's one of those things where they say, I got out just as much from it as he did. Because I was just looking at something today that mentoring is that. Mentoring is, you learn as much as you teach. So yeah, that was a great experience. I miss talking with him because he had so many wonderful stories to tell. And just, learning about a different culture was fascinating.
Absolutely. I mean, and like we all go through life and we hear stories, and sometimes I know that we have people in our lives that might share the same story 3 or 4 times, but then when you lose touch with them, you remember that story because they shared it with you so many times. And and it's just so wonderful to make those kinds of connections. Now, are you still doing tutoring?
I do have one young girl. She's 6 years old. I'm tutoring. Izzy. And her parents just thought, I used to tutor her older sister, much older sister, years ago. And they're seeing how Melanie thrived in reading and writing, even though their strengths are in math and science. So the only common denominator they could come up with was the fact that I had tutored Melanie. So they called me up and asked me if I would help Izzy. So I meet with her every Sunday afternoon, just for an hour. Again, I learned so much from her. So it's a great experience.
At 6 years old, absolutely, we all learn from them because they have no filter. So there's no fear, limited judgment. And so they just tell you like it is, which is so cool.
And school is so structured now. And I don't blame that on the teachers at all. They're following what they need to do. But she's able to kind of express herself freely and, and color outside the lines, as they say. So she enjoys it, I think.
You got to get her writing on pieces of paper and crayon. That'd be a whole new experience for her because, now with the iPads and all that.
I know, right?
So, what about mentors for you? We're talking about you being a mentor and a tutor, but have you had mentors along your journey?
Oh, yes. All different shapes and sizes. Let's see. Yeah, my journey has been a circuitous one. So, I've gotten mentors in the least, the unexpected places that I wouldn't normally find a mentor. Like I said, some like Paul, who was the Taiwanese minister, he was definitely my mentor. He would listen to me as well. But yeah, friends along the way. My son and I moved quite a bit. So I managed to make new friends each time we moved, but still keep the friends that we had prior. So a lot of those friends have been wonderful mentors to me. People who would listen without judgment. I think that's the best example of a mentor, not giving advice unless it was asked for. So imagine that, right?
Yeah, that is very, very true. Yes, more of an observer than, I think that's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing to say.
As I shared with you, before this interview, I did have a circuitous route. I had a difficult marriage. It was an abusive one, but if I hadn't had the journey I had, I wouldn't have the people in my life that I have right now. So how could I not be grateful for that? That's been a blessing. And my son has turned out to be this resilient young man. As I say now, I just stay out of his way. Just he's doing well on his own. And I'm so proud of him. But it's like I said, you can't knock the journey. And you also can't, I don't want to sound preachy now, but for the longest time, I thought I had to heal. I thought I had to get better. I thought I had to get back to the way I was before. And then I realized, well, no, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be embracing who I am now and realizing that's okay. That who knows, maybe in some ways I'm better, maybe in other ways I'm not. But it wasn't until that point where I realized I'm not a victim and that I need to just kind of embrace who I am now and move on from there that I started healing. And then it was all the help from mentors and friends and family that helped me get back. So
that was just so beautiful that you know, what you shared, because I think so many times in our lives when things go awry, we keep saying we want to go back to the way it was, because the way it was comfortable, even though, you know, what is it? I'm going to get the saying wrong, but the devil you know is better than the devil. Then there's this saying about the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, or something like that. And it's about, you know, being in, and especially in abusive situations, you know, unfortunately there's that codependency that's connected to that, and it's and the hardship of leaving, especially if there's a child involved.
Right.
And the feeling of, you know, and I'm not saying how you felt, I'm just saying I know after talking to people and being in situations the same here too, is that the feeling of failing. Like, how could I'm a smart person?
Sure.
How could this happen?
Yeah, I can make it better if I do this, or if I do that, or that. You know? And then finally I realized that it was crazy to think that way. But
and you know, mental abuse and dealing with narcissistic personalities, it's just different type of scars than the physical, but there's still scars in what you've had to deal with and the things you've had to hear. So I am, because you opened up about this, I do want to just, if you don't mind, ask you a question. And my question is, for the woman who's a professional right now, who may be sitting out there, who may not know how to leave, who wants to leave, who may be feeling like that failure, if she does, what advice would you give to her?
oh wow, that's a hard one, because each situation is different. You know, and it sounds trite, but you need to ask for help, because what you see as transparent isn't necessarily transparent. And I was I was a pro at being numb and masking my current reality. I was perfect. I was perfect at damage control and preventing things from happening. So to that woman, I would say you need to ask for help, and you need to forgive yourself for if you're feeling, you know, you need to value yourself and realize that you're doing okay right now. And know that there are people out there that want to help. And that does include, you know, local police departments. You know, I remember when I finally called the police, they said, we've been waiting for you to call us. You know, they knew. Yeah, they knew. So that might be a little scary for some women or men, you know, because men obviously are facing abuse as well. But you need to ask for help. There are people out there who will listen without judgment, and they won't force you to do anything you don't want to do, because in order to leave, you must leave at the right time. You know, if you just kind of impulsively say, I'm going to leave, you know, it doesn't necessarily always work out for the best. I think, you know, I had to come up with some sort of plan, and it worked, thankfully. I don't know, you know, right after the fact, I didn't feel so much that way, but, you know, eventually it worked. So, yeah, I would say, forgive yourself, and forgive, as hard as it is, forgive the aggressor, as much as you possibly can, because that is so healing. Realizing that it was because of his or her shortcoming that probably, you know, provoked that person to act the way they did. My husband had a severe addiction. I've forgiven him. You know, I realize I feel sorry for him that he has this addiction, and they hadn't. Even to this day, he hasn't been able to overcome it, even though, yeah, divorced him a long time ago. But know that, to that woman, know that there is help. I mean, call me. I'll listen. I'll try to help. I wound up doing my own divorce for $400, so I can help maybe.
Sounds like you can.
Yeah.
That's it's you know, incredible what you have created for yourself, right? Because there is, and that's the thing that I just want women to know, because I've been in a similar situation, and there is life on the other side of what you feel is absolutely impossible. And I know what it's like to feel like you're living two lives because you've got the damage control and everybody on the professional side of your world thinking life is great. She's got like the whole Brady Bunch life going on until you're sitting in the driveway for 2 hours, not wanting to walk into the house. So, you know, for anybody who's dealing with any of that, there are people out there like us who want to help or connect you with people who can help. And the one thing that I must say, because this happens so much, is that if you feel like you're not being heard, or somebody is telling you stay and you know in your heart you don't want to, or somebody's leading you in a way that you don't want to go, you don't need to listen. And on top of it, if somebody's not opening the door to you, then you're in the wrong room. You need to go to someone else.
Well said. Yeah, because there's someone else through another door who will help you.
Yeah, it just sometimes takes time. Listen, as a coach, as a certified professional coach, I've been hearing more and more that there are coaches and therapists that are so busy that they're not answering their calls. They're not even getting back to the people who called to say, I'd like to book an appointment. That's not the right coach or psychologist for you. You need the one who answers the phone is the one you're supposed to go to. So just keep going. That's what I want to say. Just keep going.
Exactly.
Well, Heather, thank you so much. I have one last question for you, and I do want to tell you that I thank you so much for sharing and being open so that other people can learn from your experiences and we learn from each other. But what is the footprint that you are creating now that you want to leave behind?
Oh boy. I try to be kinder, every day. And again, that does sound trite too. But I look at all my son's accolades at the tender age of 22. Yes, he had almost a 4.0 GPA. And yes, he had all these recommendations. But at the end of the day, he's a really kind person. And that's, I think, what we're all trying to be, right? I mean, I think that's be kind to each other. I remember back in middle school when they were giving out awards and, the coolest, the prettiest, most popular. Well, I got the nicest. And I was like, oh, I thought, oh my gosh, how boring. I must be the most boring. They should have just said that on the bottom.
No.
But when you're 13, that's how you think,
Yeah.
But now I think, oh, wow, okay. Well, that's not so bad to be known as kind, not the funniest, not the most beautiful, not the, most successful. I guess so. To answer your question, be the footprint, I want to make sure that I'm kind to everyone I meet.
It's beautiful. And by doing that, you teach other people without even realizing it, the importance of kindness and to return the favor. Not everybody will get the lesson, but those who are supposed to will. And that's what I trying to do through Changemakers is to bring on authentic people who really understand the importance of connection and kindness without being so ego driven and it be about what's in it for me, because it's we. Community is we. And that's how we lift each other up. And so I'm so happy to have met you, and now you've connected me with people. I hope to connect you with people, and it just kind of goes organically when you do it like that.
I agree.
I want to thank you so much for being part of Changemakers. I'm excited you're going to be part of the Changemakers Forum as well. So that's going to be super.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for
you're welcome.
pulling me out of my shell. You're good at that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I hope at the end of this interview you feel more comfortable than you did going in, because I know we talked about being, uncomfortable or being comfortable in the uncomfortable. So you didn't seem that way at all.
Okay. Well, thank you. I don't think I'm ready to be a broadcast journalist quite yet, but that's okay.
That's okay. That's okay. You could just come on my shows. That'd be great.
It's a deal.
Well,
so thank you so much.
Oh, you are so welcome. And I'm going to say what I always say at the end of every single podcast. Today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what steps, small or large, are you going to take today to get yourself closer to your goals. Again, thank you to Heather Mistretta for coming on. Please follow her. Go to Wage International, go to Pressing Releases, follow, like, share, and let's help Heather continue to grow that beautiful nonprofit. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you so much.